All right, so today we're setting sail and exploring a totally new way to think about building user interfaces. For years, we've basically been using the same old nautical charts, a reliable set of coordinates to build our apps. But here's the thing. As our destinations, our features get more and more ambitious, that old map, well, it's starting to feel less like a guide and a lot more like a cage. So let's chart a new course.
Yeah, this quote, it just hits home, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling that I'm sure every developer out there knows all too well. You feel like you're spending way more time just rowing, dealing with all the plumbing and the mechanics of getting from point A to point B instead of actually focusing on the destination, what the user really wants to do. It's all this technical overhead that just gets in the way of the actual product.
Okay, so let's be really clear about something right up front. We are not saying we should abandon our home port. REST APIs, they are the absolute bedrock of the modern web. Think of them as our safe harbor. They're stable, they're predictable, and honestly, for a ton of tasks, they are completely indispensable. We rely on them, and for a very, very good reason.
But what happens when the journey gets a little more complicated? Well, that's when the client side, your app, gets stuck doing this kind of frantic dance. It's suddenly responsible for stitching together a bunch of different API calls, trying to juggle application state, and handling every single error that might pop up. And the real problem here? All of that crazy orchestration work pulls your focus and the app's focus away from what really matters, the user's actual goal. So this all leads to a really powerful question, right? What if we just shifted our whole perspective? Instead of feeding our applications this rigid, step-by-step list of coordinates, go here, then here, then here, what if we could just point to a star in the sky, to the final destination, and just trust the system to figure out the best way to get there?
And that's the core idea here. This new approach is all about navigating by user intent. It's a huge shift from just giving a series of commands to actually collaborating on an outcome. In this world, the UI's job is just to state the destination. It's like the first mate pointing at a spot on the map. Then an AI-coordinated backend takes over as the master navigator. The one who actually charts the whole course.
Okay, let's make this real with an example. A user doesn't think in terms of API calls, right? Nobody does. They think in goals. A goal like this one is just packed with intent. You've got constraints like direct and under 800 euros. And you've got this rich context, like Carnival Week, which, isn't just a simple date range you can pick from a calendar. To capture all this, a traditional UI would force you through some clunky multi-step form.
So here's what happens behind the curtain in this new world. The user just states their goal one time. That's it. From there, the system intelligently breaks it all down. It figures out the exact dates for Carnival Week, it goes and queries all the flight APIs with that price constraint, it might even pull in extra useful info like the weather in Sao Paulo, and then it comes back to the user with fully formed, validated options. The most important part? The client didn't have to do any of that orchestration. Not a single bit. All right, so how does this new ship actually work? What's under the hood? Let's take a look at the blueprint. We're about to dive into the architecture that makes all of this possible. And hey, don't worry, we're not going to get lost in a sea of complex schematics. Just think of what's coming up as the essential nautical charts for our brand new vessel.
Okay, but before we unfurl those charts, there's one key piece of lingo we need to get straight. It's called MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. The easiest way to think about MCP is as the common language spoken by everyone on the ship. It's what allows all the different tools, whether they're on the client, on the server, or even some external service, to communicate and work together perfectly, just like a well-oiled, coordinated crew.
All right, check this out. This diagram, which is going to take up the whole screen, shows the journey in action in real time. So let's just follow the flow together. It starts with the user, right? They interact with the app. That app then sends the user's intent over to an AI planner. The agent then crunches on that intent, figures out which tools to use, and sends back an updated state. But here's the absolute magic. Look at the bottom. That real-time bidirectional sync. That's the secret sauce. It means the UI is always perfectly in sync with what's happening on the back end. It's not just a request and response. It's a living, breathing conversation. Okay, now let's zoom in on the blueprint of the ship itself. This diagram shows all the core components that make the journey possible. So you see on the left, the client kicks things off by sending out an intent. That intent travels to the agent runtime. In there, a planner, which is often a large language model, an LLM, figures out a plan, a course of action.
Then an executor takes that plan and uses the MCP registry to find and call the exact right tools for the job. And those tools can be anywhere, on the back end, on the client. You can even wrap up your old legacy REST APIs and use them as tools. It's a system that's purpose-built for centralizing all that intelligence.
Okay, so we've seen the what and we've seen the how. But let's get to the big question. Why? What's the real payoff here? Why should you and your team even think about charting this new course? Well, as it turns out, the rewards are pretty huge. Not just for developers, but for the end users too.
I mean, this slide really lays it all out. Plain and simple. It's the old Voyage versus the new one. On the left, you've got the old way. That painful client-side choreography, manually stitching endpoints together, building these super rigid, multi-step forms, and it always leads to this massive explosion of UI code. But then, on the right, you have the new Voyage. It's all about expressing goals. And that simple shift unlocks centralized intelligence, truly adaptive interfaces, and the ability to compose reusable tools instead of constantly reinventing the wheel.
So, let's just nail down the key benefits here. What do you actually get? Well, for starters, you can ship complex, multi-step features way faster. You can create UIs that actually feel smart because they understand nuance and adapt to what the user is trying to do. You get to centralize your business logic instead of smearing it all over the client. You get this incredible leverage from reusing your tools across different features. And maybe best of all, you gain real confidence because you have built-in validation and observability that tells you exactly what the system decided to do and why.
But of course, not every journey is the same, right? This whole idea isn't about taking our old maps and just throwing them away. Not at all. It's about recognizing when you have a truly complex voyage ahead of you and understanding that those journeys require a new kind of ship, one that's actually designed for the open seas of user intent.
And let me just say this one more time to be crystal clear. Rust is not going anywhere. It is and will remain the foundation. For simple, quick, low-latency tasks, it's still the absolute perfect tool for the job. The point is not to replace the foundation. The point is to stop trying to use the foundation as a steering wheel for these complex journeys that it was just never built for.
At the end of the day, it really all comes down to this. This isn't about picking some new, shiny technology just because it's new. It's about choosing the philosophy, the approach that truly empowers your team. You want the one that lets your team think in terms of outcomes, not just tasks. The one that lets them build with real leverage and observe what they've built with total confidence.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Your next big, complex feature is out there, on the horizon. It's a new, ambitious voyage you're planning for your users. The question is, what kind of ship are you going to build to get them there?